Hey guys, it's Megan. We're back in the library today. Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to talk about my most surprisingly good books that I've read this year. So these are not my best books, like I'm not putting these on my top 5 like books video or anything, but these are just books that I did not expect to be as good as they were, and I was pleasantly surprised. So the number 5 book that I was surprised about is Solstice by Lawrence Allison, and this book is a YA mystery novel. I had no hopes for this. I'm not really into mystery. Turns out now I am. I've read some more of it this year. Anyway, I'm not even super into YA, which is ironic because I am a high school librarian. But this book was actually refreshingly just fun and fast-paced. I read it like right before I had the baby, so I was like a nervous wreck knowing that he was due any day. And this book just provided some lighthearted mystery fun, I suppose. It's basically like Fire Festival that happened in real life, except this music festival is called Solstice, and this body washes up on the shore, so then it turns into a murder mystery while they're at this like terribly planned festival, and you don't know if there's something supernatural happening. That's what kept me going, was the mystery. Like, was it something supernatural that killed these people because other people die too? Is it like a murder? Was it an accident? Was it like an animal? Like there's these jellyfish around the island. Like you just don't know what it is. And it was very short, very fast-paced and fun, and I highly recommend it. My number 4 most surprising book I read this year was Raybearer by Jordan Afueko. I could not believe I liked this book because I had to read it for school. It was one of the choices that our students had for summer reading, and this book was one of the top 10 Kentucky Book Award nominees that we have here in Kentucky, and so those were the choices that students had to read from, those 10 on that list, and each of our English teachers at our school and some other people were going to lead a book discussion on one of these books. So I was asked to help lead a discussion as well, and I picked the novel Raybearer because it was the one fantasy on the list. Well, Legendborn was on the list too, but it's more of an urban fantasy. So I decided to read the more like epic high fantasy, which is Raybearer, because I had heard that the world building was so good. It was crazy for a YA novel, and to be as short as it was, the world building was insanely good. Like that's all it really was. Like the world building almost sort of took over the novel. Like I didn't even care as much about the characters at some points as I did the plot and the world building. And besides the main character, unfortunately, you really don't care about the rest of them. But this book, the plot was super fast paced and like it was so well written, and I cannot wait to read the sequel. It is really high on my TBR now. I have the sequel, Redemptor. There's only 2 books too, so that's good. It's just a duology. So, if you're wanting a shorter kind of fantasy read, then this, as far as YA fantasy goes, this is the best YA fantasy novel that I have ever read. Number 3 on our list of most surprising books is House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. You might be saying, wow, how is this not on just like your best books list? Why is this the most surprising book? It's because I didn't think that this is anything I would ever read. Everyone talked about this book, it was all over BookTube, but people would say, oh, it's like it made me cry, or it made me feel so warm and fuzzy inside, and I was like, ugh, I don't like those kinds of books. I don't want to cry. I don't want to feel warm and fuzzy. Those are not the kinds of books that I like. So I almost didn't even read it, but finally I was like, okay, I'll pick it up. I think I ordered it, that's what it was. I ordered it for the school library because I heard so much about it, and I heard that even young adults would read it. So I ordered it, took it home over the summer, read it, could not believe how good it was. Like it was not what I thought it was going to be. If somebody had told me the real premise, which on the back it says it's like 1984 meets the Umbrella Academy, and I was like, what? I love both of those 2 things. It reminded me somewhat of Harry Potter, like the Ministry of Magic stuff going on. It reminded me of Good Omens a little bit because of one of the main characters and his power. Like if you read the book Lucy, like Lucy is my favorite character. He's hysterical. And like I just did not know that that's what this book was about or the tone of it. And so I loved it. I don't know that I would read T.J. Klune's other works. Like I know he has Under the Whispering Door, but I honestly don't think I would like those. But I mean, I don't know. I said that about this one too. So maybe I'll keep giving all of his works another chance. Now, the number 2 most surprising book that I read is a book that I sort of talked about in another one of my videos, but that is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. This is a young adult mystery trilogy, and I could not believe how good it was. I had no hopes for this. It was also, though, one of those Kentucky Book Award nominees, and so students could read it over the summer. I ordered a whole bunch of copies of it because of that, and it's been the most popular book in our entire library out of any genre. I cannot keep this book on the shelves. Ironically, I think Yeah, there is one sitting over there right now on the new shelf, but that is very rare. And so I decided just to pick it up on a whim. I listened to the audiobook and I was blown away. It was such a good mystery. I could not stop listening. It's just a typical kind of like murder mystery. Like there's nothing technically special about it. This girl is doing her senior kind of like capstone project, and she decides that she is going to investigate this really old, not really old, but I can't remember how old it was at this point, but a little bit older mystery about this girl who died, Andy Bell. She was murdered by her boyfriend, and the boyfriend's family, he's got a brother and parents who are still kind of getting over all this, because not only did this guy murder his girlfriend, but then he killed himself. But she thinks there's more to it. She doesn't think that he's the actual killer, and she doesn't know for sure that he actually killed himself. So she decides to reopen the case and investigate, and she winds up, of course, actually solving this old cold case. And the whole thing was super shocking, and like there were so many possible, perpetrators of the crime. Everybody seemed possibly guilty. You didn't know. You were like, oh, could it be this person? Oh no, it must be this person. I honestly didn't know who it was. But I did like the fact that each little mystery would kind of get solved. Like she would find a clue and then she would sort of solve that clue. Then she would find another clue and then sort of solve that clue. And I liked that. But in book 2, which I didn't like quite as well, but book 2 was basically like she would find a whole bunch of clues and not solve any of them. It was just like, here's a clue, don't know what that means. Here's a clue, don't know what that means. And this happened so many times that eventually you got to where like, I can't even keep track of all the clues, and like, why hasn't she solved anything? And then as you know from, if you watched my other video about my top favorite books of the year, As Good as Dead, which is the 3rd book in this series, was one of my favorite books of the entire year. I think I put it at like spot number 3, which is crazy. But yeah, the 3rd one in the series is the best, but I put the first one on here because I was just so surprised and did not expect to enjoy it as much as I did. And finally, the number 1 most surprising book I read this year is one that I just finished yesterday? 2 days ago. 2 days ago, yes. I just finished this book. Well, no, I finished it on New Year's Eve. Yeah, it was the 31st because I was like, ooh, I'm so close to being done and by the end of the year. So just finished it. It was not a book I expected to like, and that is Wicked Saints by Emily A. Duncan. Once I found out that this was young adult, because from the cover, it honestly didn't look young adult, and I loved the look of the cover. The back sounded awesome. It said it was the villain love interest that we've all been waiting for, and that it was like dark and gothic and bloody and like cold and wintry, and I was like, oh, I want all those things. But all those things led me to believe it was adult, and it is not. It is young adult, and I see that now. But even though when I found that out, I was a little more skeptical, I was pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed it. Now, is this a very good book? No, objectively, it is not good. In fact, if I had to rate this on like Goodreads as just like the writing quality, the plot, the logic of this book, I mean, it's not good. It would be like a 2.5 stars or something. As far as enjoyment goes though, I give this like 4 stars, which I was just totally shocked that I liked this book, because I've not been liking like not weird, but just like high fantasy that's set in another world where the characters all have really like hard to pronounce names and you got to learn new worlds and stuff and look at maps. And when I saw a map in this and I saw really weird, hard to pronounce names, I was like, ugh, like there's all kinds of Z's and Y's and no vowels, and you're like, what? I don't even know how to pronounce one of the main characters' names. Malachai's, I don't even know. I just called him Mal most of the time. Even the main girl, it's like Nadeza Laptiva, I don't know. She's just called Nadia, so I just call her that. But anyway, so when I saw all that, I was very skeptical, really didn't think I was gonna like it, thought I'd probably DNF it. But once I got to halfway through, I knew. I was like, no, I'm gonna read all this. And guess what? I bought the sequel in hardback, which is like something I never do. But the title of the sequel actually kind of gives some stuff away. Like the title is called Ruthless Gods. And after reading the ending of this book and knowing kind of where I think the trilogy is going, I think the premise of the second one's gonna be awesome, and hopefully it's as good. But based on the title, I think that it will be hopefully pretty epic in scope. And book 3, I know there is a book 3, so we'll see if it's good too. I can't even remember the name of the trilogy. Like something dark and holy? I don't know, I just made that up, but there is a name to this trilogy. So anyway, this is definitely the most surprising book I read this year, because I could not imagine liking it as much as I did. So those are my 5 most surprising books that I read this year, as in surprisingly good. Hopefully that you have found something in here maybe that you are now convinced to read based on the fact that I read it and also enjoyed it. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you again soon. Have a good day. Bye.